Most people who know the Harry Potter books know that Sirius Black pops up in the very first chapter of Philosopher's Stone. But most people don't know that there's actually also a reference to the fight that Albus Dumbledore had with his brother Aberforth at their sister Ariana's funeral. And it is all plain in sight, and to be honest, most of the time hidden from the reader as an Easter egg. But I am John, and I am reading Harry Potter for maybe like the 20th time. And I'm writing a ton of video essays about it on all the cool parts of the book, as well as talking about some Easter eggs and just some really great lines that I like, and some fun theories for chapters that pop up later. So make sure you subscribe if you're into that sort of thing, especially with the HBO series coming out. And all my curiosities and excitement about that. And today's video is just about all the Easter eggs and some of my favorite fan theories about the very first chapter of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Now, these are all just Easter eggs and really fun tidbits. Let's start with number 1. The Potter's arrival. In the very first pages of the book, we have a line that simply foreshadows the ending of the chapter. The narrator is talking about what the Dursleys think about their family and the Potters, and then we get this line. The Dursleys shuddered to think what the neighbors would say if the Potters arrived in the street. Little did they know, that will happen in a few short hours. Number 2. In the celebration that they are going on in the first chapter, there is a man that Vernon Dursley sees that is elderly and dresses in emerald green robes. Now, this is a lesson in maybe less of an Easter egg as well as a fan theory, but one of the other people who is said to wear emerald green robes in this series is Professor McGonagall, which begs the question, could this be her husband? And did she even have a husband in the first place? In the movie and in the book, we all just kind of assume that she's single, but her story is a lot more tragic, and this man in emerald robes and Professor McGonagall's appearance later just kind of makes you think about what her background is. Now, Minerva got an early job in her life working for the Ministry of Magic. She was set to get a promotion, but she turned it down because she missed home too much. But she was also hopeful that she was going to marry a Muggle man named Dougal MacGregor, a Scottish farmer, whom she felt she could also not marry because she thought that would be the end of her life ambition, and she was a very ambitious young witch. In the ministry, there was another man, however, named Elphinstone Urquhart. This man loved Minerva and proposed several times after she became professor at Hogwarts. But after the death of Dougal MacGregor, she finally accepted the proposal of Elphinstone Urquhart. Their marriage was actually a very happy one and a period of great fulfillment for Minerva. But the marriage was cut short when her husband died of a venomous tentacular bite 2 years into their marriage. Perhaps this man in the emerald green robes is actually her future husband, because McGonagall isn't married at this point in the first chapter, and she gets married about a year after Harry is dropped off at the Dursleys, which is totally wild stuff. Number 3, a simple translation difference, and it's the first one, I believe, in the British versus the English versions. In the British version, the first word that Dudley speaks is shan't. In the American version, it's won't. Number 4. Now this one is fun, but in the book, when Vernon is watching the news before he goes to bed, there is speculation that the newscaster is actually a wizard. This is the description that we get in the book. Experts are unable to explain why the owls have suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. The newscaster allowed himself a grin. Most mysterious. And now over to Jim McGuffin with the weather. Going to be any more showers of owls tonight, Jim? Now, the theory is, if he's smiling about the owls, it seems like he kind of knows what's really going on and what's really happening in the world at this time, and therefore, he must be a wizard. Number 5. Now, this one is a bit of a conundrum, to be honest, but Dumbledore silently apparates for the first and the only time in the entire series. At least as far as I remember, I don't believe there is another silent apparition. In other occurrences, Dumbledore usually apparates with a crack, as every other character does, and it depends on how loud or soft the crack is depending on the character. But there is some debate as to whether or not he apparated in the first place. There's a theory out there, which is kind of my theory, that he still has the invisibility cloak that James Potter gave him, and perhaps he just used it to simply walk to this area and then pulled off the cloak. There's another idea in this as well, that Dumbledore always apparates down the street from where he's going. He does this with Harry as well when they go kind of fetch and attempt to recruit Slughorn to become a professor at Hogwarts. And he explains that it would be rude to do so otherwise. So while his apparition is silent here, which might not really be an apparition, it might actually be some other kind of form of travel that we don't know of yet, he's at least being very civil about it. Also, side note, I don't believe in textual discrepancies and problems on this channel. Only fun solutions with everything in this book. Number 6. Now, this one might be my favorite of the entire first chapter. But the text says this about Dumbledore's nose. His blue eyes were light, bright, and sparkling behind half-moon spectacles, and his nose was very long and crooked, as though it had been broken at least twice. Now, the book later gives us detail for how he broke his nose on one of those times. Aberforth, his brother, punched him in the nose at Ariana's funeral and broke it. But the second one is more of a mystery, and there are a few fan theories out there on how he broke his nose a second time. Some say that it was actually an errant spell, or perhaps a duel with Grindelwald. No one really knows. But the more interesting thing is that bones can often be easily mended in the wizarding world. So why would Dumbledore, the most gifted wizard of a millennia, wear the signs of a broken nose that he could fix very easily? The answer for that is in the actual character qualities of who Dumbledore is. He's not a person who lets himself free from the shame and guilt that he experiences over his sister's death. So he keeps his nose crooked almost as a sign of penance. And I think that actually is a great point of character writing from this author. Number 7. The deluminator makes an appearance in the first chapter, or the put-outer as it's called, because we're in the perspective of someone who doesn't know anything. In the occurrence that it's used for Harry, though, one is set to disguise him and be a delivery to his family, in quotes, to the Dursleys. And the other time the deluminator is used is when Ron comes back to him. And it's kind of signifying who his family really is here. But it's the first time the deluminator is used. Number 8. There was one full day that passed for what Harry was doing in between how he died and between how he was delivered. There was a lot of speculation about what was happening during that one day. But my favorite thing, my favorite idea, my favorite theory, and the one that I would love a TV episode on in the new show, is he just spent a full day with Hagrid, enjoying the sights and sounds of Hagrid's daily life. And he had one really great last day before his imprisonment with the Dursleys. But if you want more fan theories on that, just scour Reddit, as there are lots of posts about that 24-hour time period. Number 9. Dedalus Diggle pops up in this chapter, and periodically pops up throughout the book. He is a very underrated and underwritten character, but this man is said to be the likely culprit of setting off some sparks that were thought to be shooting stars. But Diggle pops up a few pages later when he sees Harry out in the wild with the Dursleys when Harry is in the Leaky Cauldron. He also then pops up in the Leaky Cauldron during Harry's trip to Diagon Alley. Again, he is in the advance guard of Order of the Phoenix, and he is in the Order of the Phoenix. And then he also escorts Harry to 12 Grimmauld Place in this section. And then, finally, he is the one who actually escorts the Dursleys out of the house into the safe house in the final book. So he is a pretty great and reliable wizard, unlike what Minerva McGonagall calls him. And he just likes to have a good celebration. Number 10. Dumbledore secretly lets us in on the password of his office when he unravels some sherbet lemons. Now, they are quite a delicious little snack, but I have to say I kind of actually think I prefer the British version of sherbet lemon rather than how we Americanize it and call them lemon drops, which are delicious but don't have a nice little creamy center. This is another little translation issue. So the passwords of Dumbledore's office are different in British versus American. Number 11. It's a great line from the first chapter when Dumbledore is trying to get McGonagall to say the name Voldemort, and the text says this: "I know you haven't," said Professor McGonagall, sounding half exasperated, half admiring, "but you're different. Everyone knows you're the one who, you know who, oh, all right, Voldemort was frightened of." "You flatter me," said Dumbledore calmly. Now, I'm just going to leave that Easter egg right there. Dumbledore said calmly. Number 12. There is a wild theory out there that Dumbledore is a time-traveling Ron. And two things come up later in this chapter to prove it. The first we already talked about. It's the deluminator that Ron has in his possession. The second is a gold wristwatch that Dumbledore wears. Now, I don't really subscribe to this theory all that much, but it's still a fun theory. And as I'm talking about other little things in these videos, I'll probably make a few more connections between the two characters, because there are a few. Number 13. Dumbledore and the letter that he leaves with Harry is referenced again later in the series, when the Dursleys are about to kick Harry out of the house in the 5th book. And then a letter comes warning Petunia to remember my last. Now, this letter was from Dumbledore, talking about the letter that he left here for Harry, explaining the Dursleys everything that needs to happen with Harry. And Petunia was actually the one who was said to have found Harry sleeping on the doorstep the following morning. Also, Dumbledore, that is very, very, very irresponsible to leave a child out in the cold on a November morning. That is ridiculous. I am hoping that you just left a little, warming charm on the blankets. Number 14. This chapter has a really meta line in it that says, "He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry." And wouldn't you know it, the most popular and maybe best-selling book of the last 100 years is about a boy named Harry Potter. Number 15. This is one that most people actually know, in that Hagrid rides on a motorcycle that he borrows from Sirius Black. The lesser-known idea behind this, though, is a question that comes up that confuses me a little bit. If Sirius Black is the legal godfather of Harry, then why wasn't he left with Sirius after the death of James and Lily? Dumbledore must know there is some kind of power in the bloodline that keeps Harry safe, so he needs to keep him with the Dursleys. But surely that should have been the first option. It would have made the first chapter so much more entertaining too, knowing that, Sirius was the one who was accused of giving them up in the first place. So, I don't know, but perhaps Dumbledore didn't trust any of them and would rather have maybe the unbiased guardian in the Dursleys pop up into the story. But it's a mystery to me. Whatever the answer, let me know in the comments what you think the solution is for that. And finally, number 16. This one is actually my favorite. But Dumbledore says he has the scar of the London Underground right above his knee. There is a fan theory floating out there that Dumbledore got this scar because he had a duel with Grindelwald in the London Underground, where he blocked a curse that hit a map of the London Underground and then ricocheted and bounced back and hit him in the knee. So it kind of branded him with a little tattoo of the London Underground, because how else would he have a tattoo of the London Underground on his knee, or a scar? But for sure, not true, but possibly true. And that's all we do in this channel, to be honest. We live in the fun possibility of over-explaining things in the text just to make it more fun for us. So that's all I got. Let me know what other Easter eggs or fan theories I may have missed in the first chapter, and subscribe for more of this kind of content. I'll go through, the second chapter sometime in the next week or so, and the rest of the book to come. But I'm pretty excited for the HBO series. So make sure you subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.